Now, once you have the average product and the marginal product, you can figure out the different costs. Now, there's actually two ways of getting each of these costs, and I put them down here. If you want to see the formulas for doing these, they are one way to find them is in the book, another way is in the notes. Also, there is an example in the notes that will take you through another table kind of like this one, and you can click on the answers there to figure out how to get those, what calculations you do to get those answers as we go through the costs here. But also I want to suggest to you that one thing you can do is look at the introductory stuff to read and do in the class page at the top. There's a sample formula sheet there, and some of the formulas you can find there. You can also make your own little formula sheet. That's a suggestion I would give you, to make your own formula sheet of, write down all these formulas. But here's a couple of them here. The marginal cost is the change in variable cost divided by the change in output. Q here standing for output. Now, what's the variable cost? Well, the variable cost is simply the wage. In this case, you're given that the wage is $2,500. The wage times your input. That's your variable cost. So, for example, if I'm not hiring any inputs, of course, my variable cost is zero. If I was hiring two inputs, all I got to do is take that wage of $2,500 and multiply it by 2, and that would tell me that the variable cost of hiring two workers is going to be a total of $5,000. 2 times 2,500. 4 times 2,500 would give me a variable cost of $10,000, right? 4 times 2,500, and so on. 10 times 2,500 would give me a variable cost of $25,000. So all of these inputs imply a variable cost. And if you took on this table the difference in the variable cost and you divide it by the difference in the output, you would get the marginal cost. So for example, one way to get this marginal cost number right here, would be to take the change in variable costs, going from no inputs to two inputs. The change in variable cost is going to be $5,000. I'm adding two workers and I'm hiring them each for $2,500, so that's going to be $5,000. And then divide that by the change in the output. The change in the output going from 0 to 501 is 501. So I could take 5,000 divided by 501. That's one way to get that answer. Another way to get that answer, though, it turns out if you do a little bit of math calculation, is to take the wage divided by the marginal product. Now, if you already have the marginal product filled in, taking the wage and dividing it by the marginal product might be the easier way of doing it. But this answer here, you can either take 5,000 and divide it by 501. And if you take 5,000 divided by 501, you'll get 9.98, basically $9.98. If you want to do it the other way, take 5,000, the difference in the variable cost, and divide it by 501, you'll get the same answer. Go ahead and try it. 5,000 divided by 501 is 9.98. Now, that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it by any means or anything. There's two ways of doing it. Here are the two ways of doing it. Take the change in variable cost divided by the change in output. But remember, you have to take the difference in both those cases, or take the wage, and if you already have figured out the marginal product, take the wage of 2,500 divided by the marginal product of 250.5, and that'll give you the marginal cost. The next number here, there's two ways of getting that. You could take the change in variable cost. The variable cost, I'm adding two workers. I'm paying each of those workers $2,500. So again, that's another $5,000. And then divide that by the difference in the outputs. Now, the difference in the outputs is 1,345. So take 5,000 divided by 1,345 if you want to do that. The other way to do it is if you already have figured out the marginal product, you can take the 2,500 and divide it by take the wage of 2,500, divide it by the marginal product. The wage divided by marginal product will give you the marginal cost as well. And so that's going to be 3.7175. But again, you could either get that by taking 5,000, which is the change in your variable cost, divided by 1,345, the difference in your output, or take the wage of 2,500 divided by 672.5. Either way, you get that answer. The next answer would be, and so choose your favorite way. If you already have the marginal product, that's probably going to be the easiest way to calculate. This second formula where you take the wage divided by the marginal product is probably going to be the easiest. It's just if you don't already have the marginal product, you're not out of luck. You can still find the answer by doing this other calculation of taking the change in the variable cost and dividing it by the change in output. The next number, if you want to, you can take the 2,500, dividing it by 1,038, and you would get the marginal cost is 2.4085. But again, that's also a change of, in the input, 2, therefore a change in your variable cost of 5,000, because you're paying each of those workers 2,500, 2 workers times 2,500, and then the change in the output is 2,076. The difference between these two numbers, 2,076. So if you take the change in the variable cost, which is 5,000, divided by the change in the output, which is 2,076, you get the same answer. So either 2,500 divided by 1,038 or 5,000 divided by 2,076 gives you that answer. The next line of the table, you've got this, again, change in variable cost divided by the change in input, or if you like, assuming the change in the output, change in variable cost divided by change in the output. Change in variable cost is 2 times 2,500, which is 5,000. Change in the output, if you want to find that again, is 2,689. 5,000 divided by 2,869, or take the 2,500 and divide it by the marginal product if you already have that, which is 2,500 divided by 1,344.5, which is going to give you, this answer is 1.8594. So again, take the, I'll just do the second one, the second formula here. Take 2,500 divided by 1,594.5. You'll get here 1.5679. Now again, this would be rounded off to basically $1.57. But for these numbers, go ahead if you can when you're filling out a table like this and keep as many decimals as you can. Don't round it off to dollars and cents, because a fraction of a cent does matter when you're dealing with thousands, or perhaps in some cases tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of items. The cost of a fraction of a cent is going to be multiplied, obviously enough to make a difference, perhaps. The next line of the table, you got this output of 19,200. The marginal cost of getting to that many, in other words, how much you got to pay for the last bunch of units that get you there from 9,800 to 19,200. That's going to be, again, 2,500 times the marginal product, divided by the marginal product of 1,880 is going to give you 1.3298. The next thing, take 2,500, next line on the table, take 2,500 divided by the 2,000 marginal product, and you'll get $1.25, $1.25. Now, notice as the marginal product is going up, the marginal cost is going down. The marginal cost is a inverse of the marginal product, because you're taking the wage divided by the marginal product. So they're inversely related. So here, hopefully that's enough to give you an idea of how to get these. Here are the rest of those numbers for marginal cost. Now, similarly, let me make those a little bit darker so they show up a little better. Similarly, the average variable cost is found in two ways. You can either take the variable cost and divide it by the output, or you can take the wage divided by the average product. If you already got the calculations for average product, the second one might be easier to do. But if you didn't have that, you could still find average variable cost. If someone or if a table asks you, a question asks you to find average variable cost, you can find that even if you don't have the average product calculated. So for example, if you take the wage of 2,500 and you multiply it by the input of 2, you get a variable cost of $5,000. If you take that and divide it by the output, take the variable cost divided by the output of 501, you're going to get the same answer as we had there for the marginal cost, because you're doing the same math, you're just doing it a different way. You could also, though, take the wage of 2,500 and divide it by the average product of 250.5, and you get the same answer. So either 5,000, 2 times the wage, divided by the output of 501. That means that the average variable cost at an output of 501 is $9.98, $9.98. But the other way of doing it would be to take the wage of 2,500, dividing it by the average product of 250.5, and that gives you the same answer. Again, there's two ways to find the next number here. The next number is if you take the, one way to find it would be to take the wage times the 4 workers, which is, that's going to be 10,000 that you're spending all together, variable cost, and you're going to divide that by the output of 1,846. The other way of doing it, again, there's two ways of doing it down here. Look at the bottom here. That you take the wage of 2,500 and you divide it by the average product. If you've already got the average product calculated, do that. But if not, do it the other way. 2,500 divided by 461.5 is going to give us $5.41, actually 42 cents is going to round off, but here's the exact number. Again, hang around, keep around as many of these decimal places as you can until you get to the end, because you don't know what you're going to do with this number. You might do something with it, or you have to multiply by the output and so forth. Same thing here. You could take 6 times 2,500 on this next line of the table, and you get 15,000 as your variable cost. Divide it by your output of 3,922. That would give you the average variable cost. But another way of doing it would be to take the wage of 2,500, dividing it by the average product of 653.7, and that would give you the average variable cost at that line of the table is $3 and basically 82 cents, and then the next decimal is 3.8246. The rest of these numbers, I'm going to show you how to get them. I'm going to show you what the answers are, but again, that's how you get them. You can either take, and down here at the bottom here, I've got the formula, is that you can take the variable cost, which is, again, the variable cost is the wage times the amount of labor you're hiring, and you then divide that by the output, Q here standing for output, or you can take the wage divided by the average product. 2,500 divided by each of these average product numbers gives you these numbers here. So those are the average variable cost and the marginal cost, and a reminder of how to get the average product and the marginal product from a table of numbers. The next video is going to show you how to get average fixed cost and average total cost.